Okay, hi everyone. This is SmithyQ from SmithyQ.com, and I've got a personal milestone that I wanted to celebrate today because for the first time ever, I beat someone in Blitz who is over 2100, and in fact, he's almost over 2200, and his highest rating was 2281. That was his peak. So, and I don't think I've ever beaten anyone above 2050 in Blitz, and so I didn't just do it once. I swept the series, and I'm thrilled beyond belief. And so you can probably see how excited I am. This moment just happened, and I can't sleep because I'm so excited. It's like being a kid on Christmas. So I'm gonna share my thoughts on this game, both for you guys, maybe you can, and also just for posterity, so that way I can watch and relive these games. So I'll just go through them quickly. Maybe there won't be huge analysis here. We'll see. And so my opponent, he tried to play the Smith-Morra Gambit. He just did it delayed, right? Normally, if you play this, you play d4 first, take, and you got the c3, and that's the Smith-Morra. So he played knight f3 first, after knight c6 takes, c3. And I don't want to accept any gambits, so I push forward d3, and you can see it takes him 2 moves to get his bishop out. That's fine. I'm developing normal. He comes in. Here I probably make my one mistake in the game is that he's attacking f7 with 2 pieces, and I play e6. And I didn't realize that knight d8 covers f7, so I could have just played bishop g7 or a6 or something else, and then knight f6, castled, and played absolutely normally. I played e6. This got me into a little bit of trouble, because we can see after knight f, and then he brings his knight in, is that his pieces are more active. He's already threatened knight c7 check. He's got this really interesting geometry with his pieces so far, where my pieces are pretty much on the back rank, and things could get iffy for me. But fortunately, here, he jumps in a little prematurely, and there's actually, okay, my rook is awkward, and we got this, but there's no real good discovered attack going on here. He ended up just castling. And this, I'm going to start untangling, because I play knight h5. If he moves the bishop, the knight on e5 hangs. And so he ends up playing g3, take. Oh, look, his pawn structure is ugly. I move my knight out, take, and now look. This is covered, and this is covered. This knight is almost trapped. If it couldn't go to knight a6, it would have been. Take. And I have no worry about giving my bishop, right? Normally bishops are better than knights, and this is a pretty open position. However, my bishop sucks because the major pawns are here, and that's the only square it wants to go. And by taking, we can see how I can then bring my rook to the b file of Tempe, and then my other rook slides over. Now here, he had a choice between b3 and rook to d2. And he made the wrong choice. He played rook d2. And then here's finally, or I guess my tactics training is coming off, right? I spent 30 hours or so over the last 2 months going through the Woodpecker Method Tactics book. Take. Okay, this isn't the hardest tactic in the world to see, but you gotta see these things, right? And I pick up the rook over in the corner. So I'm up the exchange, and I'm up some pawns. And from here, the game isn't too interesting from this point, because I'll just zip through it quickly. I start picking up, a lot of pawns. I thought this was a cute move. e5, take. Just because in this type of position, okay, he's not resigning. He's playing on, and that's perfectly fine, right? We can see at the time, we both had lots of time, so there was no danger of flagging. But here, his whole idea is to do something on the queen side, right? Maybe he can win this pawn, and then he's going to be pushing these guys all the way home. That's his only hope, right? So by playing a4, distracting his bishop, he pretty much has to take it, right? Take. I was able to trade the a pawns, and so his only threat is the c pawn. And I'm up, 3 pawns in this position, and the exchange? And if I had to, at any point, I really could give up my rook for the bishop, or even the rook for the pawn, and things would be absolutely fine. But even better, this has a pretty cool ending, is that right here, there's actually a mating net, which my opponent doesn't see. Or he sees and he thinks there's no good way out of it because he plays bishop e4. And then we have a rare checkmate with the king in the middle of the board, which is interesting. And we could just, the only way to try and stave off would be to do something like this. But even here, okay, that'd be mate. And so he would have to bring the bishop in, and you can see the computer line is as follows, and that's as good as resigned anyway. So not bad at all. I outplayed my opponent, I outplayed him tactically, and I did it from this pretty initially poor position. I was thrilled. And that brings us to the second game. So I was white, right? We had to play 2 games. Let me just move this out here. Okay, this is computer analysis. You can see that I was always in control. And so my opponent, he plays this d5 and then knight f6. And for years and years and years, I've always played the system with c4. Just because, after c6, I can play d4, and we've actually reached the Panov attack and the Carol Khan, which most black players don't really like. Scandinavian players, at least. Because what he wants, of course, is for me to take, and then he's got a beautiful position where I have this huge hole here. Alternatively, a lot of black players, they like to play, how does it go? Well, stuff like with this bishop g4, there it is. This is known as the Portuguese gambit, and he comes back, and black is trying to argue that, okay, he's temporarily down a pawn, but there's some weaknesses here. And this can get pretty, you know, I don't know what's going on. And so by playing this system, I just get a really easy position. And my opponent, he makes, okay, he gives me a bishop, then he plays e5. What's going on? I missed the best move here. Queen b3. Where then I'm taking advantage of his uncastled king stuck in the center, and it's really hard to protect f7. But what I played, I was just in complete control. And this is what gives me hope. Because usually what happens, especially when I'm playing Blitz against high-rated players, those are above 1950 or so, is if I get a positional advantage, often it starts slipping. My opponent is able to create tactical threats, and you know I lose the threat along the way. But here I was able to keep control of this game. Never once did it get out of hand. So I just win the pawn. He plays knight g5. Okay. This kind of looks like a really strange version of Budapest Gambit, maybe? It doesn't matter. Knight f3, knight c6, and unable to castle. And he can't win the pawn right away because the rook's going to slide over, and his king's in the center, and he's just going to lose the he's going to lose material on the e-file. So he plays bishop c5, which is smart, right? Attacking the f-pawn. I play h3. And then I miss something here, is that he doesn't take the pawn, which is pretty much losing at this point, I believe. Or he has no compensation. He could have taken it, because, you know, after f6, I can't play f4 because of the pin. So I have to do. Now I still have a really good position. You know, I can play bishop f4. I'm threatening to win a pawn. The computer gives this line. I'll just zip through it. And we can see that his rook is stuck in the corner. White is fully developed. He's got, you know, there's some X-rays and potential pins going on here. And if it weren't for this knight, he'd be in huge trouble. Like, his position is not coordinated at all. But he has even material he can hold on, right? When he goes back, then I play this game exactly the way I want to play it. I mean, I trade pieces, because again, I'm up material. Let's go to the end game. He plays bishop e3. I'm so happy about this. He wants to trade pieces. Beautiful. There weren't many good squares that bishop to go, right? Every other square is protected, and d7 doesn't really do anything, so exchanging is probably best. So I exchange. I bring my rook to the open file. He wants to exchange. Look at my, oh, this, he almost makes it easy on me. And then I was able to move knight g5, hitting the pawn, and that gave me a chance to play f4. It's now I have 100% secure extra pawn. Let's see if I can just push this home. Now again, I'm no endgame, you know, virtuoso yet. But I guess my opponent isn't one either. Oh look, more trades. And so now we've reached a pure knight endgame. And the advantage of, well, knight and pawns. A knight endgame, one of the maxims is that a knight endgame is essentially the same as a king and pawn endgame. And so you just play it the exact same way. If you have a pawn in a king and pawn endgame, 9 times out of 10, that's you're going to win. And same thing here. Also notice I have the better pawn structure. Oh, I guess there's still rooks here. Sorry. So now everything I just said, imagine. See, I'm so excited I can't even analyze properly. And oh, look at this. He wants to push my knight right into d6. And you just see how everything is going my way. Absolutely great. Now, if I play this guy, 5 more times, I'd probably lose 4 of them. Maybe I can get away a draw. I mean, that's just what you expect against somebody who's 2100. And I've just barely got my rating, my Blitz rating over 2000 again. What, yesterday? And so I don't want to give like this impression that he's a weak player. Clearly he's not, or that I'm some super god, right, at chess. Again, clearly I'm not. But this game, everything was just going my way. And let's see how I convert. So we bring the king in. Makes perfect sense. I start pushing my pawns. He does this. I apparently could have just taken the pawn right away, but I wanted to keep my knight, anchored in. And if I take, he's able to take this, and then I had to move my. Now this is probably okay, but now he has a pass pawn as well. I don't have a pass pawn yet. Let's keep it simple. That was my model for this whole game, right? A3. He does this. Now my king defends, and so maybe I'm thinking about taking. So he takes for me. Over here. All right. So in the endgame, all I need to do is get a pass pawn. So my only thought is, let's push these pawns, get an exchange going, get a pass pawn, distract his king, and then maybe I'll win some of these pawns. So that's the idea. Get a pawn. Let's say it's this pawn, right? Push the pawn. His king will have to come over to stop it, and that will give me time to win over here. And that's pretty much exactly what happens. H4. He tries to exchange more pawns, which makes sense. I just keep going. Take, 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 take. Then he moves away. That's great. I reposition my knight with a threat, which he doesn't see. There we go. We can see what happens, right? He was so worried about this pawn that he missed the knight coming over with the fork. Now, the position went from maybe not easily winning, to easily winning. Win the pawn, that's great. So now he's got these checks going on, but there's nothing he can do. The great disadvantage of the knight is that it can't stop. The knight is terrible against separated pawns, pass pawns. Like if there are 2 pawns right here, right, a knight can blockade both of them in certain positions. When they're far away, the knight has no chance. And I'm up material. At any point, I can even sacrifice my knight for his, but there's no need to do that. Anyway, move my king to a good square so that there's no further checks. Start pushing the pawn. Move my king to a good square so there's no further checks. I think he's just given up at this point. I take. I win the knight, and then he finally he resigned. All right, so this game maybe wasn't one for the ages. You're not going to be seeing this one written in chess books anywhere. But for me, for a personal milestone, for me to defeat such a high-rated player relatively, I don't want to say easily, smoothly. There were no wobbles. At no point did my opponent get the counterplay. That so usually happens. At no point did the things become unclear the entire time. Basically from what? Move 10? Yeah, basically around, move 10, move 11. White was constantly going forward, and the only question was, can black draw this game? And this makes me so happy, because this is the way how I normally play my correspondence chess, my slow chess. And if I can start learning to do that in Blitz, that means my time management is getting better. I'm not getting so flustered in the time, right? There's so very few, this is great. And what's hilarious, do I have a... Give me one second. Okay, so I found it. This is just 1 week ago. And if you look at my rating, it was in the 1700s. And this, I had I was dropping all my games. I think I went something like 2 wins out of 15 games. It was terrible. I mean, I'm hanging my queen, I'm doing mouse slips. Everything that could have went wrong did go wrong. And I was beyond frustrated. Again, I was in the 1700s. And I was able to crawl my way out a little bit, and then I'm thinking, I'm putting all this time into chess, right? I'm helping other people, I'm studying, I'm going through games. I did like 30 hours of tactics training in the last 2 months, and I'm down to 1700. You know, sometimes this happens, and especially when you're learning new skills. Things often get worse before they get better. And this really sucked, let me tell you. But then now, if we just, you know, we zip over here, and again, you can see this trough, you know, it's down here. And that, whoa, this last little bit, it's been up and up and up, and I guess the rating hasn't been updated yet, because I'm up to the graph at least, I'm up to 2040. It's not quite my all-time high. My all-time high was back when I'm still provisional, but, you know, it's, wow. So you gotta trust the process, right? If you put in the work, you will get better. It might not happen as fast as you want it, and you might drop a few games, you might drop a lot of games, it might get really, really frustrating. You gotta trust the process, right? And hopefully I'm not done. Maybe I can get higher and higher, but there it is, my first 2100, almost 2200 in Blitz. So there we go. I'll have some regular videos, of course, for the rest of the week. I wanted to share this, you know. Yeah, I can go to bed now. Anyway, so that's that. So again, I'm SmithyQ from SmithyQ.com. Questions, comments, you know, like, subscribe, all that, that'd be great. But that's it. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.